Okay, so I'm recording a second video here as an addendum to the first video that I created because I had a couple students contact me, and looking at the work that was submitted, I realized that when I did the Google Photos, I had said you could also use Google Drive, but I found out you cannot use Google Drive to do this, so you have to use Google Photos. So, and there's two steps. One is to make sure you share it, get the link, and two is to get the right URL. So I'm going to walk you through that because in there I said you could use Drive, but you can't. Okay, so just to remind you, what we're talking about is right here. If you were using the editor, otherwise you could just go out to the GitHub and change it there, which I'll show you next. But it's right here under the background image under the header class. Okay, so and by the way, one of the ways to know if you've grabbed the right URL, it'll say something like LH and then a number and then Google user content. That's how you know you're in the right area. So I'm gonna again, by the way, I'm just gonna do this. I'm gonna go to photos.google.com. I'm gonna browse through and find the photo that I want to use. I just played with this one and had it just to make sure it does work. So I would find another photo, right? So this is another one I could use. My new Pixel camera is doing a nice job. Again, I gotta make it get link, right? So that shares it. Now I can click on that, but what I'm going to do is, and you need to do this, is right click, say copy image address. Now to verify that it actually is shareable, you could pull up another drive or another browser and look at it, but I'm just going to paste it into here. And that, even though it looks the same, it's actually not. And part of the way you can tell it's not is that the Google user content right there. Okay, so now that I know I have the right URL, I could just go to my local settings here and update here. Paste it. Make sure I keep the parentheses and the colon, semicolon, and make sure the parentheses at the beginning. Now this is going to now render locally correctly, most likely, if you've done all that. But really what you probably want to do, because most of you have already uploaded it into GitHub, let me just show you how to change it up there. So you can log into GitHub. You can go to the again, a couple of you missed this. It was really important that you do your username.github.io when you create this repo. If you don't, then it won't render as a website. And some of you gave me this URL to your code, and that's not what you needed to do either. When you give me the link, I want to actually see it as a website. Okay, so if you didn't do those two things first, create it with the username. It won't render as a website. That's actually more points off. But if you just gave it to me like this, I could figure out the URL, but it was minor points off. But if the photo didn't show up, that was more points. So let me show you now how to fix it. You just go into that CSS file. You hit the pin here to edit it. You scroll down to where this was in the page. Okay, and I'm using Shift in my arrow keys just because it's so long, and I'm going to paste that in there. And then because it is a change down here, I now have to commit it. Updating style. Oop, that's wrong. And I could say fixing image URL and just commit that. Okay. So now what will happen is my website right now renders with the one I was testing it, not with the one you originally saw. So now if I refresh it, it'll look kind of similar, right? And in just a second when it comes in, it takes it, as we remember, a minute for it to show up. And by the way, the other way, it's hard to tell, the images are so similar. So one of the ways you can actually see is I can actually see how different one. I know it may not, but this is the other thing, is there actually is, I believe, an error message on this, on the image. So anyway, those are the things that hopefully that helps you make sure you get that correct. I'm just going to verify because I actually ended up using two photos that were very similar, so it's actually hard for me to see if it rendered that out there. But I'm pretty sure it did. And that's where pulling up another browser, and I can see the difference in those two photos. So I can see this has still got the old one, which is what I did. Is I pulled up Firefox and I put it in there, because what happens is it's called cache, and we've talked about it in one of the lectures, is that when you open up a website, it brings the assets to your local system. So then when you refresh, it just refreshes the local and it doesn't go out to the server. Okay, so I hope that helps clarify questions you may have. So make sure in your classwork you give me the correct URL. You do test it to make sure it shows up when you're in a browser where you're not logged into Google, and make sure you use Google Photos for this step. You cannot use Google Drive. Thanks. Talk to you later.